You see, there's this type of individual who navigates life absorbing every emotion in sight, not only their personal highs and lows, but those of others as well. They're akin to emotional antennas, resonating with every sentiment nearby. We often label them as empathetic hearts, highly attuned individuals, or just folks who experience life intensely. And culture has conditioned these types quite effectively, right? It's instilled in them that their knack for deep feeling carries an implicit toll. The toll of serving as the go-to emotional haven, the default listener, the free counselor for all. Yet, something truly remarkable unfolds when one of these deeply feeling people simply halts entirely, ceases soaking up others' vibes like a blotter, refuses to agree when their instincts howl in protest, quits contorting into unnatural forms, music, merely to ease others' discomfort. The outcome isn't what most anticipate. They don't turn icy. They don't grow harsh. They evolve into something far more threatening to a society reliant on their perpetual giving. They awaken. Allow me to explain what's truly at play. Most folks utterly misjudge what sensitivity entails. We view the empathetic type as inherently gentle, inherently generous, inherently destined to nurture everyone around them. But that's where the error lies. This depth of feeling, this capacity to sense it all, didn't emerge because they're supposed to be the planet's mood cleaners. It arose as a protective strategy. Consider this. If your upbringing demanded constant vigilance over the atmosphere, predicting tempers before anyone entered the room, with your well-being hinging on regulating others' feelings, you adapted by tuning into everything, not as a blessing, but as shielding. The perceptive kid who detected threats in a parent's inflection, music, who sensed the tension building in the home before chaos erupted. That young one endured by honing an acute awareness of surroundings. Here's the catch. They excelled so much at interpreting others that they overlooked decoding their own inner world. Thus, these empathetic wanderers reach ages 30, 40, 50, still running on that early script, still equating their worth to how helpful they are, still persuaded that sufficient generosity, concern, and yielding will secure the affection they've craved forever. What an elaborate deception we've foisted on them. We've persuaded them their empathy is a treasure to dispense universally, non-stop, no matter the personal drain. We've proclaimed that limits are self-centered, that declining is rude, that prioritizing their own needs somehow dishonors who they are. But observe the shift when one of these empathetic beings reaches their breaking point, and they inevitably do. It arrives after decades of pouring out until they're depleted, or following yet another exploitation of their goodwill, or during a mundane Tuesday when, in solitude, they grasp that no one's inquired about their true state lately. At that juncture, a shift ignites, not always with fanfare. Often it's merely a subtle reflection, a straightforward query that alters the course. Imagine if I paused. Imagine if I quit mending everyone else. Imagine if I quit taking on all the hurt. Imagine if I quit being on call for every drama, genuine or fabricated. Within that inquiry lurks a certain dread, doesn't it? Music. For the empathetic self has woven their sense of self around indispensability. They lack clarity on their identity, absent a role as rescuer, soother, or savior. Their existence has revolved around this function. Contemplating departure from it resembles plunging into void. Yet, here's the reality when they summon the courage to venture into that void. They find it's no void whatsoever. It's expanse, expansive, freeing openness, room to inhale deeply, room to ponder their private musings, room to experience their solitary sentiments without the intrusion of external turmoil. Music. Within that expanse, fresh insights emerge, previously obscured. The cycles reveal themselves. Those cycles sharpen vividly once you withdraw from the dance. They spot how some contacts surface solely for favors. They observe who fades away when they cease initiating outreach. They identify the energy drainers, those charismatic sorts perpetually in turmoil, perpetually seeking aid, perpetually extracting and music extracting, yet rarely circling back with reciprocity. This is the intriguing part, music, because the empathetic individual doesn't sour into skepticism upon spotting these cycles. That's the common worry, isn't it? The dread that ceasing the boundless generosity, vulnerability, and mercy will morph them into a jaded, resentful caricature. Rather than losing their empathy, these individuals sharpen their awareness. They cultivate a kind of mindful discernment. They continue to experience emotions intensely, forge deep bonds, and extend true understanding. Yet now they decide intentionally. They direct their efforts purposefully rather than spreading them thin to satisfy every request. Imagine a searchlight versus a broad beam. An unawakened empathetic person acts like a wide floodlight, casting glow on everything nearby while remaining dimmed in their own space. Once enlightened, they transform into a precise beam, deliberate, music, potent, directed. They focus their radiance on what counts, on real needs, on spots where it can truly impact. Naturally, this leaves certain folks in the shadows. Those who only showed up for the easy warmth, who never planned to reciprocate any glow, now face the absence of their convenient source and resent it deeply. That's when the complaints begin. You've transformed. You're not who I remember. What's gotten into you? The inspiring part is music. The enlightened, empathetic person no longer hustles to comfort these critics. They skip the frantic efforts to demonstrate they're still compassionate, still generous, still the dependable fixer everyone leaned on. Instead, they just grin inwardly and acknowledge, "You're right, I have evolved." At last, because here's the unspoken reality. The former empathetic self, the crowd pleaser with zero limits, the sponge for others' turmoil as if it were their duty, that wasn't authentic. It was an act, a coping mechanism confused for character. The true essence lay hidden beneath layers of non-stop nurturing. Music. That genuine self held unshared views, unspoken desires, pent-up frustration, ambitions sidelined by constant tending to others' moods. As this authentic side surfaces, discomfort sets in, for the empathetic individual and especially for those who thrived on their self-sacrifice. There's a phase, potentially stretching months or years, where life feels unfamiliar, fresh, and a touch alarming. The empathetic person must acquire abilities they never honed, ways to decline requests without lengthy justifications, methods to let others down without drowning in remorse, techniques to spot attempts at pulling them, music, back into familiar ruts. Let's discuss remorse. It's the main tool deployed against those awakening to empathy. Right as they establish limits, it strikes predictably. How dare you prioritize yourself? Do you only think of your own feelings now? I figured you were decent, and the empathetic soul, conditioned lifelong to validate their worth, stings from that remorse like a sharp blade. Yet this is where true growth occurs. They must confront it head-on. They need to endure, music it, without rushing to dissolve it by slipping into old habits. They pose the vital query to themselves. Does this remorse signal an actual misstep, or merely the unease of reclaiming my existence? Usually, it's the second. Remorse marks the final gasps of the outdated self. It's the survival mode that thrived on utility, on indispensability, on mending all woes, and that mode fears irrelevance. But it has to fade, since the empathetic soul can't uncover their true nature while lugging others' emotional loads. They can't unearth their real identity, music, beneath the facade of endless accommodation. They can't tune into their inner guidance while boosting everyone else's priorities. Music. Thus starts what I term the major filtering. Connections rooted in the empathetic soul's non-stop generosity begin to fracture. Some adapt. Those who truly value them, who view the empathetic soul as a full being instead of a supply to tap, they shift. They honor the limits. They embrace the shifts. They could even get motivated to examine their own habits. But others fight it. They'll challenge the new stance, accustomed to unchecked access. They'll wield remorse, frustration, coercion, anything to restore their support network. Here, the empathetic soul confronts their greatest challenge. Can they stand firm even as loved ones grow irate? Can they risk displeasing others to honor their core? This demands real effort. From early on, the empathetic soul was conditioned to place others' ease above their own truth. They've internalized that stirring conflict is risky, that self-advocacy is egotistical, that their own wants rank below the collective's. Breaking free from this pattern demands a kind of bravery, not the flashy, heroic type, but the subtle, daily resolve to prioritize yourself even when every fiber of your being has been wired to put others first. Observe the transformation in the body when an empathetic person quits bending over backward for everyone. It's truly captivating. For years, perhaps even decades, their system has stayed locked in perpetual tension. Their nerves have been handling not only their feelings, but also absorbing those of others around them. They've dealt with migraines, digestive issues, fatigue that no amount of rest fixes. Their physique has been yelling for a break, yet they powered on because others depended on them. But once they halt that cycle, once they begin uttering no, once they establish safeguards to guard their vitality, the body starts to unwind. Music. The ongoing strain begins to ease. Those unexplained discomforts and twinges start to diminish. Slumber, snorts turns more restorative. Vitality surges back. It's like the body is finally letting out a long-held sigh after years of holding its breath. And that tracks, right? The form wasn't designed to filter out all the emotional debris from others. The empathetic individual has operated like a personal emotional cleanup facility, and their health has borne the cost. Once they cease shouldering the tension, worries, and hurts of everyone else, their well-being starts to rebound on its own. Now, here's a key point to grasp. When an empathetic person stirs to awareness and recognizes the reality, they don't shed their empathy. That's the worry many hold on to, but it's just not accurate. They don't turn indifferent, detached, or icy. Instead, their receptivity shifts to being intentional, music, instead of instinctive. Prior to this realization, they soaked up everything reflexively, music, like a cloth plunged into liquid. They lacked any say in the matter. If someone felt down, they mirrored that sorrow. If another grew uneasy, they shared the unease. If anger flared nearby, they shouldered the duty to mend it. Yet post-realization, a change occurs. They retain the ability to detect those feelings. Their intuition stays sharp, possibly sharper than before. But now, a brief interval arises between noticing and internalizing. A beat to reflect. Quote, "Oh." They cultivate something akin to a discerning filter, flexible enough to stay linked, yet sturdy enough to stay true to who they are. This deliberate empathy evolves into their greatest strength. They enter a space and quickly gauge the vibe, but it no longer bowls them over. They hear out someone's troubles with real understanding, but they don't walk away burdened by them. They form profound bonds, music, without vanishing into the mix. This is the treasure inherent in their gift of feeling deeply. Music. Not perpetual self-denial, but mindful bonds. Not engulfment, but authentic understanding. Not sinking beneath others' moods, but navigating life's emotional currents with finesse. Let me share what unfolds in connections with others. When an empathetic person awakens, the shift is quite striking. Those who have been leaning on them start drifting off on their own. No heated clashes ensue. Typically, it's just a slow retreat as the empathetic one ceases to be on call for the familiar patterns. The acquaintance who only reached out in emergencies stops phoning once the rescues end. The relative who craved non-stop emotional backing seeks elsewhere when limits emerge. The spouse who offloaded all the feeling work either steps up to handle their share or hunts for another to shoulder it. This drifting can sting like a parting. Music. And to some extent, it is. But it's the shedding of ties that weren't true ties to begin with. They were pacts, deals where the empathetic supplied boundless emotional fuel for mere scraps of closeness. As those pacts dissolve, room clears. And filling that room arrive other sorts of individuals. Music folks who view the empathetic as a complete being, not a utility. Music folks who offer as much as they receive. Folks who honor limits music rather than probing them. Folks who cherish the authentic self, not the acted-out role. Music. These fresh bonds carry a unique feel. They seem breezier in a way, despite their greater depth. Less turmoil, fewer emergencies, less wearying mood handling, more flow. Music, more balance, more real delight. The empathetic uncovers something remarkable: music. Authentic links are rejuvenating, not depleting. Sincere affection doesn't demand you forsake your core. Solid companionship involves mutual support, not one-sided nurturing. Now, let's dive into resentment, as that's where it turns truly compelling. The rousing empathetic often unearths a massive reservoir of fury hidden beneath all that forced politeness: resentment over exploitation, frustration from being overlooked, irritation from all those moments they agreed when they truly wished to decline, fury toward those who took advantage of their generosity, self-directed rage for permitting it to happen. Such fury can catch them off guard. The empathetic individual has devoted their existence to kindness, empathy, and tolerance. They've buried their resentment so deeply that it slipped from memory. Yet it simmered beneath, brewing quietly, seeping through as grudges, acrimony, ongoing tension. When this fury eventually breaks free, the empathetic person frequently feels overwhelmed. They worry, "Oh dear, music, I'm turning into the sort of individual I always avoided. I'm growing resentful, cynical, and tough." Yet this is a misconception. The fury isn't forging a stranger out of them. It's unveiling a presence that's lingered unspoken, denied a voice until now. And when this fury receives recognition and is channeled properly, it proves beneficial. It's the aspect of their being that recognizes their value, the element that rejects mistreatment, the voice declaring, "Stop it now, my needs count as well." This fury isn't an adversary. It's an instructor. It pinpoints precisely where their limits were crossed. It supplies the vitality to forge fresh ones. It incinerates the inauthentic facade, exposing the authentic core below. Still, the empathetic person must master handling this fury wisely, not by lashing out at every past offender, not by turning sour and wary of all bonds. Instead, by treating the fury as insight, as motivation for growth, as the blaze that reshapes them from accommodator to authentic self. Music. Now, consider this inspiring shift that occurs as the empathetic person recovers. Music. As they start respecting their personal requirements and establishing solid limits, they frequently feel drawn to assist others in pursuing the same. Yet their approach to aiding has transformed entirely. Previously, they supported by handling all tasks, by taking on others' burdens, by resolving their issues. That aid stemmed from obligation and entanglement. Music. Today, they offer support through presence, by trusting an individual's power to address their challenges, by imparting lessons learned without any urge to intervene. They evolve into what could be termed an aware mentor instead of an obsessive savior. And this method truly aids people more than the previous one ever could. Rescuing others merely bolsters their sense of powerlessness, but fostering faith in their knack for solutions, music, empowers them to uncover their inner resilience. The enlightened, empathetic person grasps that the most valuable offering to others isn't performing acts on their behalf, but having confidence in their ability to manage on their own. Allow me to share what I term the reclaiming of one's essence. Following the first stirrings of awareness, once limits are in place, after certain ties dissolve and others evolve, comes a phase where the empathetic person must acclimate to their own company. Truly solitary, not isolated in loneliness, but embracing seclusion for the initial time in their journey. No audience to satisfy, no feelings to regulate for another, no role to enact, merely their unfiltered self. This phase might unsettle them initially, as the absence of outward distractions forces confrontation with their inner world. Thoughts, emotions, music, yearnings. They confront queries long evaded. What are my true desires? What beliefs do I hold independently? Who emerges when I'm not defined by service to others? These inquiries can seem daunting, music, since the empathetic person has long shaped their identity via relationships, leaving their solo self unfamiliar. Yet, herein rests the profound reward. Within that seclusion, in that unmasked expanse free of roles, favors, or repairs, they encounter their true nature anew. They uncover personal tastes, viewpoints, idiosyncrasies. They learn what sparks joy in private moments, what stirs their heart without an observer, what ignites passion absent any recipient of approval. They realize their own intrigue, untapped layers they lacked opportunity to explore, and that they make remarkably engaging companions. Then, a remarkable development unfolds. The empathetic person develops affection, not for another, but for their own being, not through egoism, but with tender regard. They begin viewing themselves as deserving of the nurturing and focus they have lavished on others. They adopt the same empathy toward their needs that they've shown the world. They commit to their well-being with the zeal once reserved for everyone else. This self-regard marks a profound turning point. For authentic self-appreciation bars tolerance for bonds that demand self-neglect. True knowledge of one's value precludes acceptance of mere scraps of regard. Experiencing the serenity of solo existence renders chaotic ties intolerable. The empathetic, once a person awakens and reconnects with their inner essence, music, they gain a stability they never possessed earlier. This isn't due to toughening up emotionally, yet because they've discovered their core equilibrium. From this foundation, they interact with life in an entirely fresh manner. They contribute from abundance instead of exhaustion. They assist driven by genuine motivation rather than duty. They express affection from completeness rather than desperation. They form bonds from sincerity rather than pretense. I term this sovereign empathy, the power to experience it all while staying true to who you are, the strength to invest deeply without diminishing your own essence, the blessing of remaining receptive yet protected, tender yet resilient. Now, consider this intriguing contradiction. When the empathetic individual ceases attempting to satisfy all around them, when they quit soaking up every surrounding feeling, when they prioritize their own well-being at last, they end up far more impactful in aiding music others, not diminished, but amplified. Since they're no longer acting from personal pain, they're extending support from a place of integrity. They're not saving others to affirm their worth. They're uplifting people because it truly stirs their spirit. They're not resolving issues to escape their inner turmoil. They're imparting insights gained from their personal growth. The enlightened, empathetic spirit transforms into a beacon of guidance. They root themselves firmly, radiating their glow consistently, lighting the route for those prepared to notice. Yet they won't pursue vessels lost in the mist. They won't forsake their position to save every struggling craft. They believe their unwavering beam suffices, that those destined to navigate toward it will arrive. This embodies authentic service, not self-denial, but self-sharing, not exhaustion, but enrichment, not victimhood, but empowerment. So what unfolds when an empathetic person halts the endless quest to appease all and begins embracing reality? They don't shrink. They expand. More deeply genuine in their identity, more profoundly linked, more potently engaged, more vibrantly thriving. The authentic core, long concealed beneath layers of crowd-pleasing, at last surfaces, and that core proves extraordinary. Music not for being flawless or transcended or free from human challenges, but for its raw, imperfect, music boldly genuine quality. In a realm brimming with facades and acts, that authenticity shines as the ultimate treasure.